Hello and welcome to another interactive session of wildlife conservation and management discussion. Today we'll be discussing a topic on carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is defined from two broad, that is, depending on the management goals and limiting habitat resources. Populations in general are found above or below the carrying capacity of their habitats and fluctuate over a continuum of ecological densities. Ultimately, population sizes tend to follow trends in ecological carrying capacities because animal qualities, rates of reproduction and survival, and habitat conditions tend to be ecological density dependent. When population is maintained below ecological carrying capacity to maximize harvestable supplies, a precise achievement of this economic goal will depend on understanding the relationship of the population and the habitat to variation in population size and variation in the carrying capacity of the habitat. Therefore, to determine and achieve a proper understanding of the habitat's carrying capacity, a comprehensive study needs to be carried out and the data analyzed adequately to inform any decision making about the habitat quality and the animal quality in a specific habitat at any given time. Welcome. So what is carrying capacity? As we have understood earlier, that carrying capacity has been defined into two broad perspectives. So one, where the management goals are well defined, carrying capacity is simply the number of animals of a specific species of a specified quality that an habitat can support and sustain in a healthy, vigorous manner without progressively increasing the level of impact on habitat resources. So here we are dealing with the quality of the habitat and the quality of the animal. The second definition goes that where no management goals are well defined, carrying capacity is generally defined as the number of animals an habitat can support. The concepts of carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is a property of the habitat, meaning the quality of the habitat controls or determines the number of animals that will be supported by the habitat at any given time within that habitat. Carrying capacity is also determined by habitat limiting welfare factors such as food, water, and space. Carrying capacity also varies as the supply of and animal requirements for limiting factors vary. As the amount of food available in the habitat varies, the carrying capacity of the habitat will also change. Carrying capacity is controlled and determined by the management goals, where there's a specific quality of animals that is required within an habitat. The managers will modify the habitat to ensure that they get the right quality they need. Lastly, although habitat condition may be influenced by the number of animals, a population at carrying capacity will not cause progressive continuing destruction of the habitat to hinder the sustainability of the management goals. Types of carrying capacity. There are two types of carrying capacity, namely the economic carrying capacity and the ecological carrying capacity. Under economic carrying capacity, it is defined by the management goals for population productivity, animal quality, and habitat conditions. Here, the management goals are well defined, and there's a specific quality of the habitat required to support specific quality and population of the animals. On the ecological carrying capacity, it is a variable habitat characteristic determined by changeful amounts of welfare factors that limit the size and productivity of a species population. Under ecological carrying capacity, availability of food, water, and space affect the carrying capacity so that the number of animals that can be supported by this habitat is determined by the availability of these factors, which are forage, interspersion, space, and water. Economic carrying capacity. And economic carrying capacity, the management goals has been defined for population productivity and for population control. And this has been categorized into maximum harvest density. So under maximum harvest density, the main goal or the main agenda here is for population productivity. And therefore maximum harvest density is the number of animals that habitat will support while continually producing a maximum sustained harvestable surplus. And the population must be maintained at this level of abundance by harvest. So depending on the data available on the habitat of the population, there should be no cases of overexploitation or underexploitation to maintain the maximum harvest from this population. Carrying capacity maintained at maximum harvest density has some impact on wildlife populations and its habitat. One, the populations at maximum harvest density characteristically exhibit a young age structure and high rate of turnover. Secondly, the habitat condition will be good, though not without signs of use and perhaps retrogressed vegetation. And thirdly, at maximum harvest density, population quality will be very good, though not probably the very best possible. These factors arise because there will be continuous supply of essential and quality resources for the animal for the achievement of quality products during harvest of these wild animals. Under economic carrying capacity, the second tool we look at is the minimum impact density. So here we need to understand that the main aim is on the population control. So as a goal for wildlife management, minimum impact density aims to reduce the impact of wild animals on those of desirable target species. It is desirable to use minimum impact density or to maintain the animal's population at a minimum impact when one, the population is considered to be a pest species, which is one not to be eliminated but to be controlled. Secondly, when the predator population decreases the production of livestock or desirable wildlife species. Thirdly, when the ungulates compete with valuable and perhaps less competitive wildlife species target of a particular management program. So here, there's a specific species of wildlife that is desired, but there are limiting factors that would affect its population. So when these factors are kept at minimum, the desirable population will thrive to its minimum, to its desired capacity. Minimum impact density as a tool also exhibits some impacts on the wildlife population and its habitat. One, the populations maintained at minimum impact density of the carrying capacity have a very low level of ecological density. Two, the reproduction and resistance to natural mortality is generally high in such populations, requiring persistent and abundant harvest of animals to maintain the population at this level. Three, the population habitat should also be in excellent condition, receiving only minor use from the depressed populations. Having looked at economic carrying capacity, we now shift focus to ecological carrying capacity. Ecological carrying capacity is exclusively dependent on the availability of and lack of limiting habitat resources. Therefore, to determine the carrying capacity at this level, there's a need for comprehensive study to be conducted on limiting habitat resources. So under ecological carrying capacity, we start by looking at the subsistence density, which is the size of an harvested population limited primarily by forage. Subsistence density also exhibits some impact on the wildlife population and its habitat. These factors include: 1. At subsistence density, population quality and habitat condition will be comparatively poor, because this is the ultimate in ecological density. This arises because of overexploitation and degradation of the habitat and overexploitation of food. The second impact is the reproduction is expected to be low, and periodic die-offs will probably occur in years of severe weather because of lack of food. The third impact is at subsistence density, it implies that the primary limitation on reproduction and survival is food. Another tool we look at under ecological carrying capacity is the tolerance density, or the saturation point density. It is defined as the number of animals that a habitat will support when intrinsic behavioral and/or physiological mechanisms are dominant in controlling the population. It is a characteristic of territorial species, and under this, space and interspecific competition are the limiting welfare factors. So this is a clear case of the survival for the fittest, where only the strong will survive. It has also some impacts on the wildlife population and its habitat. So the first impact we look at is at tolerance density. All animals may be in good condition, or they may be in a hierarchy of condition depending on their fitness. Another impact is the subordinate animals will be in the poorest of condition, having low rates of reproduction and survival because they can't match up to the strong ones. Another impact is, since animals tend to defend resources, there's little or no degradation of limiting factors, and therefore the habitat should be in good condition. The last but not the least tool we look at ecological carrying capacity is the security density. Security density is the number of animals a habitat will support when welfare factors necessary to alleviate or ease predation are limiting. These welfare factors are escape cover, interspersion, and for some animals it includes space. At security density, there are some impacts that it imposes on the wildlife population and its habitat. So the first impact we look at is at security density. Social intolerance may force some animals out of the secure habitat. These mainly arise during mating seasons and the competition for food. So when the weaker animals are driven out of the secure habitat, they are likely to meet the predators outside, which then ensures that they will be killed. Another impact we look at is the reproduction by dominant animals is high, and these animals will always be in good condition. The last impact we look at is habitat condition should always be good under this security density. So a clear understanding of different carrying capacities is very important to any wildlife manager when making decisions on restocking, harvesting, and translocation. Before making any decision or coming up with any management goal, a wildlife manager should ensure that they have the capacity to carry out a comprehensive research that will inform their actions during the implementation process. Once again, thank you for listening to my presentation. Please remember to hit the subscribe button, like, share, comment, and let's learn together. Thank you.